we see two sisters, Sister Paxton and Sister Bernie, working for a new church. Their job is to recruit new members who have accepted the church's invitation and to personally invite them to join. As they make their way along, they encounter another girl who starts misbehaving with Sister Paxton, even harassing her. This upsets Paxton so much that she begins to cry, revealing her gentle nature. Seeing this, Sister Bernie advises her, "You have to find your inner strength. Crying won't get you anywhere in life." Continuing their conversation, the sisters finally reach their destination. It had started raining along the way, and by the time they arrived, both were completely soaked. Their destination was Mr. Reed's house. They had come to ask him some questions about a man named William. Mr. Reed invites them inside, but Bernie reminds him of one of their church rules. They never enter a house unless there is a lady present. Mr. Reed replies that his wife is inside. She's in the kitchen making blueberry pie. Tempted by the aroma of blueberries, the sisters agree to enter. They park their bicycles outside, remove their wet clothes, handing them over to Mr. Reed, and then sit down. Once settled, Mr. Reed mentions that his wife will be joining them shortly. He then starts asking about their past lives, and we learn that they were raised within a church. He inquires if they believe in God, and they both affirm with a yes. Mr. Reed then shows them a Book of Mormon written by Joseph Smith. Before this, they hadn't subscribed to any particular religion, but during a time of hardship, an angel had helped them, an experience that led them to believe in both God and religion. When Mr. Reed asks if Joseph Smith's words seem true to them, they respond, "Yes, absolutely. God is also a part of this world." He continues by asking if they believe in a second birth after death, and again, they both answer in the affirmative. At this point, Sister Paxton adds, "When I die, I'll become a butterfly, perch on my people's fingers, and let them know that I'm still with them even after I'm gone." Mr. Reed then poses another question. "Is it acceptable for a man to have more than one wife?" Paxton replies, "Yes, in my view, it is." Curious, Mr. Mithad, Reed asks why their church members adhere to that rule. Sister Bernie explains, "It's because our church wants to grow its membership. The more members there are in a family, the more the overall church membership increases. That's why this rule was established." Hearing this, the man shakes his head and says, "No, that's not how it happened." He then explains that Schaff had married many times out of his desires, and following his example, people began taking on multiple marriages. So many, in fact, that they started calling it a religion. This revelation leaves the two sisters greatly surprised, as the man seemed far more knowledgeable than they were. He goes on to tell them that he has read many religions and believes that the more you study them, the more you realize how little you truly know about each one. Finally, he gets up and heads inside, adding, "If you both want to meet my wife, come on in right away." "Come on in," the man said. But as the sisters stepped inside, something felt off. Suddenly, the entire room went pitch dark. Paxton reached for a candle and, upon lighting it, discovered it was a blueberry-scented candle. This small detail revealed the truth. The man had been lying. There was neither a wife in the house nor anyone baking blueberry pie. Sensing that something was amiss, the sisters pretended to call their church for help. However, the man was no ordinary person. He explained that the walls of his house were made of metal, which blocked any incoming signals and prevented sounds from escaping. Realizing they were trapped, Sister Bernie suggested, "We should talk to this man. Maybe he'll let us go." They moved on to the next room, a space arranged much like a church. As soon as they entered, they mentioned, "We're getting late for church. May I leave now?" Mr. Reed replied, "I haven't imprisoned you here. The front door will open in the morning. If you want, you can leave through the back door." Both sisters, now bewildered and troubled, wondered aloud who would put a timer on a door. When they tried opening one exit, they found it led down into a basement, a route they weren't comfortable with. Opening another door revealed the same basement passage, and they became convinced that the man had deliberately trapped them. In the next scene, we see Father Towels, who had grown extremely worried when the sisters didn't return. He set out immediately to find them. The sisters hadn't asked the man for help in leaving because they knew he wouldn't let them go. Instead, he began speaking to them in a casual manner, showing them a board game called Monopoly and several other games that, while having different names, all followed the same pattern. At one point, Sister Bernie noticed a letter opener. She discreetly picked it up and hid it, planning to use it if needed. Then the man continued, "Look, all these games are essentially the same. The rules are identical, yet people still play them and have fun." He proceeded to place 3 holy books from different religions on the table. "I've read all 3, he said. "They all contain the same messages. Only one of these religions is genuine. The rest are just copies of the one before. Your church, too, is fake. Now, I don't even know which religion copied which." As she listened, Sister Bernie reached into her jacket pocket and discovered that her bicycle keys were missing. They were now in Sister Paxton's jacket. In that moment, she realized they had been deliberately trapped. The man had tampered with their bicycles, leaving the keys with Paxton. Understanding his trap, and after hearing everything he had to say, both sisters declared, "No matter what you say, after listening to you, I still believe in my God and in my own religion." Hearing their resolute response, Mr. Reed went over to 2 doors and wrote "believe" on one and "disbelieve" on the other. He said, "If you truly believe in God, then go out through the believe door. I'll be watching to see if God guides you rightly or wrongly." Trusting in their faith, the sisters stepped out through the door marked "believe." It was very dark outside, and they fumbled for their mobile phones. When they switched on the light, they saw a table and a chair. A short distance away, a small window appeared that had been shielded with wood. They tried to use the chair to break the wooden shield from the window, but they couldn't break it. It only gave way a little. Sister Bernie then handed Paxton the letter opener she'd stolen from that man's room. "Now I'll distract him with my words and recite some special phrases. At that moment, you attack him immediately, so we can both escape," she whispered. And so the real game began. Just as they were discussing their plan, a woman wrapped in a sheet suddenly appeared before them. In her hand, she held a poisonous pie. She sat down and began reciting mantras. At the same time, Reed's voice informed them that this woman was a prophet, a seer, and that she would now eat the poisonous pie and die instantly. After dying, she would tell you what she saw in the afterlife. Neither of them was willing to believe it, but they stayed to watch. They then went upstairs and discovered that Reed had built a model of the house, arranging it so that the girls were placed wherever he desired. It almost looked as if they were his puppets. While Reed was busy with his model, one of them quietly slipped out through the other door, the one marked "disbelieve," hoping to escape. However, she soon noticed that both doors led into the same basement. Entering the "disbelieve" door, she spotted a match lying on the floor. She thought she could use it to start a fire and signal for help, but when she tried to pick it up, it wouldn't come into her hand. Quickly, the 2 of them moved to the other door. There, they discovered that the woman Reed had called a prophet had eaten the poisonous pie and was now dead. Immediately after her death, Reed instructed them, "Check her pulse and breathing. Tell me if she's alive." When they checked, it was clear that she was indeed dead. Then Reed added, "She will now rise and tell you what she saw in the afterlife." No sooner had he finished speaking than the doorbell rang. The sisters knew that their father must have come looking for them. But Reed went and lied, saying, "There's no one in my house right now." And since no bicycles were visible outside, their father believed him and left. On the other side, they had taken the match they'd seen earlier, planning to light it to signal to their father that they were trapped. However, before they could act, their father had already gone. Just as they were about to use the match, the woman, the one they'd been told was a prophet, suddenly came back to life. As soon as she revived, she announced that after dying she had seen a cloud, which was nothing like heaven, and declared that none of it was real. No sooner had she spoken than Reed returned and took the woman away. Witnessing all this, Bernie refused to believe it. "How did you do all this?" she demanded of Reed. "That woman was dead. I checked her myself." Sister Bernie was completely confused. "Maybe this is just her near-death experience," she continued. "I had a near-death experience in my childhood too. When I was close to dying, I had a holy vision just like that, but then God gave me a new life." By saying all this, Bernie was trying to disrupt Reed's control. As she spoke, she mentioned something about magical underwear, implying that now was the time for— Just as Paxton was about to attack Reed, before she could strike him, Reed quickly pulled out a knife he had kept and slashed Sister Bernie's throat. Stunned by what she saw, Paxton demanded, "What have you done?" Reed replied, "This girl isn't real. It's merely a stimulation." After killing her, he removed something from her severed hand, a chip, and said, "Look, everything was running solely on this chip." Paxton retorted, "That isn't a chip. It's an implantation for birth control. And I know exactly how you did everything. The woman you call a prophet truly died, but the first woman who died and the second one have been swapped. I noticed even the way they sat had changed. Their exchange happened when we went upstairs to fetch the matches. This was all part of your control plan, and I know there's a secret passage in the basement where that woman must be lying dead." At these words, Reed began to laugh and asked, "So how exactly do you plan to prove all this?" Paxton replied, "I'll find that secret passage." Hearing her, he laughed even more and said, "There isn't any secret passage here." Undeterred, Paxton returned to the basement in search of the secret passage, and sure enough, she found it. To her astonishment, inside that passage lay the dead body of the woman. Returning upstairs, she confronted Reed. "I told you, this is all under your control." Rather than getting upset, Reed seemed delighted. In fact, he wanted Paxton to understand everything he had orchestrated. Next, she set out to inspect every room in the house. In one room, the same one where his bicycle was locked, she used her bicycle key to open the door and was horrified to find many women imprisoned inside. At that moment, someone came and said, "Now you see which religion is the real one?" In response, Paxton began to tell a long, sorrow-filled story. She explained, "Ever since we entered this place, you've been executing your plan. You took our coats from our hands, removed the bicycle keys from them, and brought the bicycles inside. Then you forced us to do everything you wanted. Everything was under your control. In your view, the real religion is control. Whatever religion we follow is simply controlling our minds. It's not our own thinking at all. We're being manipulated through religion." Hearing this, Reed became quite pleased that Paxton had finally understood. He said, "Yes, all religions do control us." But something still pained Paxton. Reaching into her pocket, she pulled out the letter opener that Sister Bernie had given her. Without warning, she spun around and plunged it into the lower part of Reed's neck. After killing him, she dashed upstairs to the room where Reed had built a model of the two of them. There, she began searching for an exit. However, as she approached the doors, she discovered that they were all interconnected. The entire house was constructed like a labyrinth. No matter how she wandered, she always ended up in the same place. It dawned on her that perhaps she would never be able to leave this house. Just as these thoughts swirled through her mind, a wounded Reed suddenly appeared, moving toward her. Using that very letter opener, Paxton stabbed him, and by that time, Paxton herself was mortally wounded. At that moment, Reed said to her, "You believe in God. God will listen to you. Pray to God on behalf of both of us." In other words, he too believed in God, though for some unknown reason, he was leading both of you away from him. Paxton began to pray. Just then, Sister Bernie staggered into the room. Overjoyed to see her, Paxton grabbed a piece of wood and struck Reed in the neck, ending his life. Paxton was elated that Reed was dead and that her companion had come to her. But moments later, Sister Bernie also died, filling Paxton with deep sorrow. Gathering what little strength she had left, Paxton went upstairs again to examine Reed's model of the house and discovered a window through which she could escape. Quickly, she opened the window and finally broke free. As soon as she stepped out of that room, a butterfly landed on her hand. She knew that this was Sister Bernie's soul, here to tell her that she would always be with her. Overjoyed by this sign, her belief in an afterlife grew even stronger. The moment she realized this, the butterfly vanished. And with that, our story comes to an end. Make sure to subscribe to Film Reveal Decoder and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. If you have a favorite movie you'd like us to explain next, type "next" in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.